Hi guys, I'm Dominic. How are you?
Great.
Having a great Sapphire so far?
Fantastic.
I do too. Actually, it's my first one.
Wow.
And it's also, okay, cool. So we're in here.
Virgins here.
Say again, please.
Two virgins here.
Oh yeah, obviously. I try not to hurt you much. All right, okay. I'm here to talk to you about the way to go to S4 with the single step migration upgrade. We call that initiative Bluefield. Right, so the typical options that you have when you go to S4 is Greenfield and Brownfield. Whereas Greenfield, you start with a new and empty system. Basically, you rebuild everything from scratch. Now, if you have a history in your company and you invested like millions of dollars across the years, along the years, to customize your system heavily, you probably don't want to reinvent the wheel over and over again. So on the other side, you have Brownfield, which is basically a technical conversion. Like you take your existing system and you upgrade it as is, with the hopes that everything works as is, and you don't do any changes. You try to treat it like an update in this case. You get the same system as you have before, at least that's the hope. Just running on S4HANA, you're not leveraging any of the new capabilities like predictive analytics, at least not at this point right now. So you will end up with the same broken processes and the same unused customizations. Now, most customers that we have ask for a better option, something which is somewhere in between, which is leveraging both the ability to introduce new processes as well as keep all of your existing stuff and your best run processes that you built all over the years. Now, how does SNP Bluefield really work, or what does it enable you to do? The thing with Brownfield is you converting all of your historic data. And converting the historic data mostly is the problem with the Brownfield conversion, right? Because you're running in all those errors which you only feel and get when you're running through the migration. Now, if you could be selectively updating or selectively migrating your system, both from a business perspective, so you say you only take over a few company codes or a company code cluster, as well from a technical transformation part, then you could probably get out of this mess of errors that you're getting when you're doing a Brownfield conversion. And also, you're getting your historic data, right, which you would like to have in your system because you want to, of course, leverage the new capabilities of predictive analytics. Without data, well, you don't probably have nothing. So, you want to pick and choose what you want and innovate at this point only the things that you really need. You don't need to do re-implementation like you would with a Greenfield. On the other side, you can collapse all of the Brownfield steps, which I'll come to in a little bit. We may end up into multiple go-lives in just a one single step. No prerequisite projects, no post projects afterwards. So this seems exciting, and let's see how we can get there in a bit. So you are able to get the benefits of S4HANA right away because you can leverage getting all of the historic data that's really relevant for you and move straight into that. All right. Let's see how this works. On the top of here, you will see a typical way for a Brownfield migration. You start with a lot of prep work, like archiving old data that typically gets into the way of such a Brownfield conversion, right? You test that out. So you have a test cycle right here. Next thing is you have, for instance, been merging and acquisitioning. You have been divesting in the past, so you have unused legal entities in your system which carry configurations which are not really relevant anymore. They also, in the end of the year, when you file them up, for instance for tax and for regulations, they cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, which you may want to get rid of at this point, right? So you're trying to delete all of those, maybe with their historic data also, in a second go live on your source system. So you're renovating your source system bit by bit, and you're getting your subject matter experts involved for testing like on every step along the way. Now, there are also a few new requirements which you have to meet, which you could prep your source system for. Like, for instance, a new GL conversion right here. You have to be a new GL when you go to S4. But what about if your source system isn't there yet? So you're prepping your source system with another project which ends up in a go live, and you need to be doing testing. Next thing would be business partners, which is the mandatory concept under S4. So you have to introduce that too. How about you could collapse all of those things right here into just one single step approach and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 step migrations in the end to leverage all of the benefits, just one. Because after that, after you would have done the business partner implementation, next up would be the brownfield upgrade that you actually be doing. Now you've done all of the prep work right here. And after that, even you would follow up with, for instance, condition record migration, and then maybe move to the cloud. How about you can do all of these things in one step? Think about the efforts you would be saving just with, well, reduced testing in this case. Now, with those 7 test cycles cut in just to one, you could be reducing time and effort up to 80%. And even there is more, because in the end, to leverage all the predictive analytics, and you have an existing system landscape, which most of our customers actually have, they're not talking about, okay, in the end, the 20 SAP systems that I have in my landscape equal up to 20 S4 systems in the end. They want to condense them, they want to collapse them on the go. So they are talking about merging and consolidation in the same way. Of course, not possible if you just go with a brownfield migration in this case. On the other side, you did your splits, you did your divestitures in the past, and the legal entity carve-out that happens, like for instance, you got rid of company codes that you sold to the market, they may be in your way. Then also, what happens is, if you go and you introduce new mandatory concepts, like for instance the new GL conversion at this point, many customers that we see want to do other stuff, like for instance a chart of accounts conversion at the same point. So this is something that you might be considering when moving to S4, and all of those are really options that Bluefield, SNP Bluefield will bring to the table, and you can do that all at once in one single project with one downtime and one testing effort in the end. Now, how do we do that? We're in business for 25 years now. We've done 10,000 migration projects, and with the software that we have, we actually incorporate all of the know-how right into the software itself. So it's a software-driven approach. You run through these steps in a guided procedure, and we have all of the IP that we gathered throughout the years built right into the software. It starts from analyzing your system. First thing that you typically want to do is get visibility of what is actually being used. How are your systems actually currently hung together? How is your organizational structure? Which processes are you being using right now? Which of those are actually compatible with S4? In which areas do you need to improve? And which is the right S4 release for you to go on to? Then you define the scope of the project next. Easy. The first thing that we typically do is we look at the map, at the world map, find out how your business is distributed around the globe. Because ultimately, if you do a project with a single instance even, and it's distributed around the globe, you might not even be able to conduct all of the training that's necessary to your staff in just one go. So you may be even forced by that to do a wave-based approach, right? For instance, by legal entity. On the other side, coming back to the old deprecated company codes that you lost through divestitures along the way, for instance, you want to get rid of those. So you want to do a selective migration, or have the option to do a selective migration. Next, after you define the scope, we go into the design phase and find out what conflicts you have within the system. Of course, starting from simplifications by going much further, because we're simulating the export, finding out exactly based on the scope of your project, what are the customizations that you actually need? How is your customizing laid out? And what contradicts each other? What needs actual adjustment in the end? So you're really only dealing with the conflicts that are relevant to the move that you're about to make. They also help you because they define nice dropout sets to define the rule set that you're actually then invoking and working on and operating when you do the actual migration. Now, The power of all of this basically lies in the empty shell creation, because we separate with SAP Bluefield the system upgrade from the data migration. So all of the upgrading processes that you need to be doing, all of the mitigations that you need to be doing are released or are relieved from the burden of the data migration. We put that back into later on. So you have basically a split part, 2 tracks which can run simultaneously. Your subject matter experts planning for the data transformation, and your technical staff doing the upgrade. At the same time, you're not wasting any time on that, because those 2 things can actually run in parallel. Then you do your selective migration based on the scope that you initially set up, and end up with a new S4 target system. With that customization, with the leveraging of the processes that you actually want to be using. Then actual data migration happens, and of course it doesn't end there. We do consistency checks to ensure that data integrity is really kept on database level for first. Then we do also automatic checks on the application level. But let's face it, if you're moving over and you've customized your system heavily throughout the years, you probably have custom code sitting there enhancing your existing application. And those checks also need to go, because they may be validating your data while you would be in a transaction or in your Fury now to run that. Yeah, basically, you can iterate on that, refine. So we support multiple test runs. The least that we typically see being done is three steps. 1 initial migration to find, well, initial conflicts. Then a second test run and test load, and then actually a go live that brings your system up to speed and really ends up with you end up with a new S4 system. So to recap what we've learned now, what we can do is from the typical brownfield migration with those 7-step approaches, well, of course, that's taken somewhat to an extreme. You can collapse it down into a single project. You need less staff, you need less testing, less effort, and of course, you can leverage on the system capabilities right away, not only after like the 7th project. So you can collapse multiple steps into one. Also, what we see is you want to have your analytic data all in one system, so you can really leverage the power of S/4HANA at this point. So we support merging of systems, not just simple upgrade, but reintroducing systems along the way. Also, what of course happens after you did your first migration, even using another approach, at some point you will acquire a new company. At some point you will be introducing new processes. What now? This is not a simple system upgrade anymore. Can you force the one that you're buying to upgrade to S4 and then move over? Probably not. Do you only want to take over their master data? No, probably not. You want to have the historical data also, because you want to leverage the knowledge that they have in their existing system. So what we support also is going into an existing S4 system, and not just the upgrade path for an initial wave. So if you think about 2025, and you have a big program running and multiple systems that you want to be collapsing into one, your first project you could be treating as an upgrade. But from your second project on, you have a living S4 system that you want to be migrating into. That's not as easy anymore with the traditional ways. So this is where SNP Bluefield kicks in and leverages our knowledge that we gained throughout 25 years of doing these types of things, starting from R2 to R3 migrations and bringing that to S/4HANA. Then, of course, you can selectively innovate. I mean, basically, you can take over everything that you want and keep all of the investments that you did throughout the years. Now, you don't need to change anything, but you can. And if you can, we help you along the way identifying what customizing has actually been referenced, what customizing is actually laid out in a different way, and now has to make, now adjustments have to be made. With that, let's see. We are built. SNP is a company based out of Germany, Heidelberg. We're actually acting globally. We have, I believe, like 20 locations around the globe. We are heavily software based. Our approach, again, we have like 25 years history of doing these things. This is why we have been approved by EY and PwC. Of course, got certifications for the products that we have in use. We are SAP Gold Partner also on the services level, so we not only provide you the software, but we would also provide you our experience and our guidance with services if needed. All the processes that we use to produce the software in the end, of course, are also certified, and we have heavy partnerships. I mean, we're here at SUSE at the booth. I mean, if you're going HANA, you have to go Linux, right? So you're re-platforming anyhow, which is why we're here. It's the perfect partnership because basically we're bringing over the new customers to the new platform that SUSE has to offer. All right. So with that, I'm already closing, open up to questions. And if you want to see the Bluefield approach live, head over to the booth. It's like going down here and turning to the left, booth 7055, and experience it live. We have demos, we have all the experts there to see how you will approach your way to HANA. Thank you.
All right, let's give it up.
Yeah.
That was great, Dominic. Thank you very much.